Welcome to Sprinkle with Hope podcast with your host, Jason. And Shane and I are sitting next to each other, which we love to do. We don't get to do it very often. But today's topic is being intentional. Shane and I really wanted to talk about that. We think it's really, really important to be intentional in the things that you do. So I'm going to bust out a quote, which I love to do. So the quote is from John C. Maxwell. He's uh, kind of a life coach and does a lot of really cool things about that kind of stuff. But his quote is, "An unintentional life accepts everything and does nothing. An intentional life embraces only the things that will add to the mission of significance." And I really like that quote because I thought it was more about what it is that you're actually trying to accomplish than it is just doing something because you want to do something. Um, I love definitions. I think they're great. The Oxford Dictionary's definition of intentional is done on purpose or deliberate. So you're deliberately doing something and there's a purpose behind what it is that you're actually doing. You know, thinking about what it is you want to do and having clear purpose, actions, and thoughts. That's really what I was thinking about when you're doing something intentional. You have this clear thing that you want to accomplish, what it is you want to do. So having that purpose, taking deliberate action and doing that and having deliberate thoughts about the things that you want to accomplish. Shane and I talk about taking action all the time. Take action on the things that are important to you, not to somebody else or to something that doesn't mean anything to you. Take action for what you want to do. And then the other, two other thoughts that I had, and then I'll turn it over to Shane. But being self-aware, I think, is really important aspect of being intentional. So say no to what you want to say no to, and say yes to what you want to say yes to. That was one of the things that I thought about in thinking about being self-aware or being intentional. Is if I want to say yes to something, then I should probably say yes to it and do that thing. And then the last thing is being full of gratitude. We've talked about gratitude. I think that when you are intentional about what you want to do and you have that gratitude for what it is that you have in your life, then I think that clarity and those things come to your mind a little bit better.
I agree. I think I was kind of going to talk about gratitude as well, because I think being intentional encourages that gratitude when sometimes we often forget about the small things that we're grateful for. But if we're intentional with things, then it reminds us the things that we can be grateful for. So I have two quotes. The first one is by Richie Norton. He's an author and an entrepreneur. He says, "Intentional living is the art of making our own choices before others' choices make us." And I just thought that was so good because it's true. If we're not intentional with us, then decisions might be made for us that we don't really even like. And so if you take a different approach and be intentional with your decisions and these type of things that we're talking about, then you can make your choices. The second quote is by Abraham Lincoln. He was a president of the United States and one of my favorites. I love what he says. So he says, "You can have anything you want if you want it badly enough." And that just hit me. It's so true. If you really want something, you're intentional about it, you're gonna go get it. Your desires and your intention to getting those things will allow you to get them. Some of the benefits of living intentionally, which is one of the things we've already talked about, which is helping with gratitude. I think it also gives your life clarity. It allows you to see the things in your life that you want, and the things that don't necessarily fit in your life, they become less clear, and they just naturally drop off because you're focusing more on the intention of your life. And then the last thing that I thought about a benefit is it prevents you from living on autopilot. I've seen stats that up to maybe 95% of people every day they go through the same cycle. They just feel like they're living the same day, like Groundhog Day, because they're not really living with any intention whatsoever. And so they get up, they do the same thing, they do the same thing all throughout the day. They go to bed and they just repeat, rinse and repeat. And that, if you live with more intention, you're going to have less of that autopilot feeling in your life. Some things that I came up with that we could do, living intentionally, are things that living intentionally does is that you realize that your life is made up of all these choices. So every morning when you wake up, you realize that you have certain decisions that you have to make. Those can turn into opportunities or other things. It really depends on your attitude. You can evaluate the culture that you're swimming in. So kind of what I was talking about, Groundhog Day and those things. Life isn't a vacuum. It's not just one, it's not sucking you in and just, it is what it is. I don't believe that. It's based on decisions that we have every single day. And you are building the culture that you want. So if you're living with intent, you're setting those requirements that you want for your life, not for anyone else. You can also examine yourself and see who you really are. Who do you really want to be? Get a hold of your passions and your desires to really go after what you want. A few months ago, I was at church and we were talking about goals and purpose, the difference between those two. And it really hit me then. I like goals, but I've never really been one that really likes to set goals, because in my mind, and now as I'm thinking back to that discussion that I was involved in, a goal you reach and then it's over. And then you have to set another goal and you can reach that and it's over. Or maybe you don't ever reach your goals. You're just always going after them. But purpose is my purpose in life. So I feel like Jason and I are starting to learn our purpose in life. We don't really have goals for the podcast or for any other things that we're working on. It feels more like a purpose, and that feels good to me. I'm sure Jason would agree. And our purpose, so let me give you an example, the difference between a goal and a purpose. So let's say that our goal for the podcast was to reach 85 people every time we talked. Okay, pretty good goal. Could we reach it? Possibly, easily. But what if I said my purpose is to help people live a better life? So they could do the same thing by listening to the podcast. Or you see the difference between a goal and a purpose. My purpose is to help people, and I can do that through a podcast, but I don't ever attain it because I didn't set my limits. I didn't say I can only reach 85 people or 1 million people. It's as many people as I can help. That's my purpose. And so I just wanted to bring that up and share with you a personal example of something that I'm learning, that I'm not saying goals aren't good, but I'm learning that a purpose, at least for me, is much more impactful than setting a goal.
I agree. I think that oftentimes setting a goal just puts kind of a box around us and, gives us this, these defined lines that we have to stay in, like a swim lane, right? And so you're only allowed to do these certain things in those swim lanes. So I agree. I think having purpose or being deliberate about the things that you do and just moving forward with the best purpose that you can through life is way better than just having some goal that you're going to reach. And then what do you do? What do you do after that? Yeah. So I agree. I like lists because I think it's helpful. So I came up with 6 ways of being intentional, or things that you could do to be intentional. The first one, be deliberate with your day. When you're really getting up in the morning, don't just get up and go about your day as if it's, another day. Be deliberate in what you're doing. make it a point to accomplish what it is that you want to that day. If it's, I want to run a mile, or I want to be better at the job that I do each day, great. Have that purpose and be deliberate about it. That'll help you kind of be more focused to accomplish the thing that you set forth in the morning. Also, number 2 is to be clear about the result that you want. Don't be wishy-washy and think, okay, I just want to get up and have a good day. Okay, anybody could have a good day, even if they sat on their couch and did nothing the whole day, right? You could still have a good day and do that. I think having a clear result of something that you want, right? So you're going to set the thing that you want to do for that day. Again, it could be purpose driven, if that's what you like. It could be goal oriented if it's really, if that's where you're starting, great. Set a goal for yourself for that day. Say, I'm going to get up, I'm going to brush my teeth, take a shower, and do these things. Great. Do those things, but just have a clear result as to what you want to accomplish by the end of the day. The third thing is be purposeful with your time, meaning don't just set out to do something and do whatever it is that you're going to do. Actually have a purpose for that time that you're going to do, and really drive it home. And I would love to include also having self-care be a part of that purposeful time, really taking the time to either do breath work, which I love, or exercise, which I don't necessarily love, but I'll do if I have to. But just those things that you really want, that help you be purposeful with your time. And then self-care, I think, is a huge part of that time that you need to set aside. Number 4 is be intentional with your focus. What I mean by that is think about looking through a lens, right? And so if you're to look through a lens, if you're out of focus, everything's going to look a little blurry, right? Kind of how, if you're watching me on the screen, how I'm kind of blurring in and out. But that's what I mean, is that if you aren't focused on what it is that you're doing or wanting to accomplish or having that purpose, then you might just be doing a lot of busy work, right? And you're not really being intentional about what it is that you want to get done. You're just doing a whole bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. So be intentional with your focus. And then the 5th thing, so I got 2 more, 5 and 6. So 5th thing is become focused on your goal or your purpose, right? So really hone in on what it is that you want to accomplish. Shane talked about clarity. I think clarity is a huge part of that, because it really draws it in and really allows you to look at what it is you want through either, like, imagine looking in a microscope or through those binoculars, right? And you're really wanting to see the thing that you're wanting to shine or make brighter or bring light to. Do that thing. I'm all about bringing more light and love and focus to what it is that you want to accomplish. And then the last thing, which I really think is a really important thing, which is be mindful of your most important relationships. Shane and I have a great relationship, and I really love to focus on that because I think it's really important for the both of us to have a great relationship, as well as a great relationship with my spouse and my children. Really being mindful of those things and what I do. When I get home and see my wife, do I give her a hug and kiss? Do I say hi to her? I just run in and start going to busy work, right? But being mindful and allowing your life to grow. One of the things that I thought about was when you have gratitude for the people in your life, their value in your life grows, right? So as you are being grateful for them and being mindful of them in your life, their value in your life grows exponentially.
Yeah, that's great. So along with Jason's, I have a little crossover. I came up with a few things. I'll just read some and then talk about a few of them. Some ways that I thought we could be more intentional with every day is be mindful of the media you consume, have clear structure to your morning and evening routine, kind of like Jason was talking about. When you get up in the morning, have a routine that you do every morning and every evening, at least you do that. Declutter your home. So we've talked about that in the past, where I say removing the noise from your home, those things that get in your way. Cultivate a positive mindset. We talk about this all the time. It really starts with your mind and being intentional with your thoughts so that you can make those choices that you want. Along with a positive mindset is practicing active listening. So I think all too often we're listening with the idea of how are we going to respond to people instead of actually listening and feeling what the person is saying. And then, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. So just being intentional with that as well, I think will help make time for self-reflection and prioritize self-care like Jason was talking about. I strongly believe in that breath work that we've talked about, and like we're talking about now, being intentional with your day. All of these things are going to help you be intentional with your words. So words are so powerful and can build people up or tear them down just like that. And so I'm not just talking about the words that you speak out loud, but the words you say to yourself. That's where self-care comes into play, where you have your communication most with yourself. So you have to be caring and protective of yourself first before you can do any of these other things. Practice gratitude. That you can't do that enough, I think. As we practice gratitude, that we will really start to see amazing things in our lives. And it can be simple things like a different color of a flower that we never thought was like, whoa, that color is just hitting me awesome today. And it's just because you're practicing gratitude. And then know when it's time to let go of things. I think all too often we hold things inside and those really eat at us, and then we start changing the words we say to ourselves, and we're really not practicing self-care, and then we start to go downhill, and before we know it, we're not doing very well, and we're not being intentional with anything. We're actually hurting ourselves. And so I think a lot of those things are things we can do every single day, and they're not hard. None of these things that we've talked about are hard things. It's really about deciding you want to be more intentional with your life, making the decisions that you want to be where you want to go. So
I love that. I do think it's important to let go of those things when they need to be let go. There's trying to hold on to something that isn't going to serve you in any way. That's not going to help you or anybody else. So yes, definitely let go of those things that when you need to let go of them. When one acts with intentionality, you begin to focus more on your strengths rather than your weaknesses or fear, right? I think oftentimes fear stops us from being maybe a little bit intentional because we're afraid of what might happen if we do those things or whatever, but it's really focusing more on what your strengths are. What my strengths are different than what Shane's strengths are, right? We're two different people, and so we have to focus in on those things that we're strong at and be intentional with those things. Those things can be hard and difficult, but they are super, super important. And I think that's what it is. Hard things are worth fighting for. And I think that's what we're really talking about when you're being intentional. Yes, these are easy things. Some of them may be hard for you, but I think oftentimes hard things are worth fighting for to accomplish. I have just one last quote that I want to mention. It's a little lengthy, but it's, if you know Walk the Earth or Nikki Bannon, this is so cool. I love these things. They're great. So I want to kind of finish off with this. But this is what she says about being intentional. Be intentional about who you are, how you treat yourself and others, and how you spend your days. Take time periodically to truly slow it all down and listen to your breath. Use those minutes or hours to remember that you have everything you need in this very moment, that everything is okay just as it is now, Allow yourself everything you are feeling right now, whether it's joy or hurt, sorrow or glee, and then return to this moment. Remind yourself where you come from and who you are. Remember that whether you're floating through busy days or stumbling through tough times, you are living, breathing, being with real feelings and real dreams. Remind yourself that you are meant to feel joy, you are meant to feel free. And I think that wraps up the whole thing of being intentional, is all in that. I totally agree that we do need to bring ourselves back to the moment, remind ourselves that yes, we're human beings and we do have struggles and trials and things in our life that may feel hard, but there's always greener pastures if we just continue to move forward and find the things that we can see that are that we can have gratitude for in our life.
So Garth Stein, he's an author and a film producer, and I loved what he said. I love this quote. It really struck me. He says, such a simple concept, yet so true. That which we manifest is before us. We are the creators of our own destiny, be it through intention or ignorance. Our successes and our failures have been brought on by none other than ourselves. And it's so true. We are the creator of our own destiny. We have the power within all of us to do whatever we want to do, to set our destiny and set the life that we really want. We can make those choices every day. I think if it's done with intention versus just the daily grind, I think you're going to see a big difference in your life. It's something that I think Jason and I would agree that we are learning to be more intentional with our time, with our talents, with everything that we, it is being more intentional with our time. Time is so precious, but if we're intentional with that, then the success or failure that we see is solely based on what we have and the decisions that we make.